Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be in the country and world. We are excited to have some time with you to talk about our first year move-in. And we are excited to give you some important information as we move through our presentation. My name is Lisa Freeman. I'm the Director of Residence Life, and I imagine that many of you all met with Chris and myself when we did the presentation during orientation. And so we're excited to see you again. So we are going to get started with our presentation. So there are a number of topics that we want to cover with you today. We're going to do a little bit of recap. Lots of information has been shared over the course of the last month, and we want to make sure that we are all working off the same page. And then we're going to get into the bulk of move-in planning. A lot of details go into move-in and understanding that this is a unique year with a lot of requirements for us to modify and make adjustments so as to ensure that we have a seamless experience for you and for students as we get ready and are excited to welcome them to campus. Then we're going to give you some more information about health and safety and how health and safety plays into our move-in process. And then we're going to talk a little bit about fall insights. There's important information that's you're going to need not only in planning for move-in, but as you prepare for this next academic year. I know many of you have submitted questions when you registered for this webinar. We have likely covered all of those questions in our presentation, but we also recognize that there may be questions that you have that may come up as you go through the presentation. So if you did not submit a question, you have the ability to submit a question through the chat function, and Chris and I will be moderating that at the end of our presentation. But without further ado, we want to get started, and we will go and do our formal introductions. And I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Chris Silva.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Christopher Silva. I'm the Director of Housing at American University, and I'm very excited that we're talking about move-in today and sharing really great information with you. Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Ashley Boltershek, any and all pronouns. I am the Senior Associate Director of Residence Life, and I'm very excited to be here speaking with you all this afternoon.
And I'm Skylar Osmond. I'm our Associate Director of Residential Facilities, and I'm ready to talk move-in planning and arrival with everyone.
Right. Well, as we get started, I think one aspect that we wanted to make sure to highlight to everyone is that we understand it's been a challenging past few months, personally, professionally, for all of us, as we adapted to COVID-19 and worked with the students that lived on campus in the spring semester for their safe departure and return home, and to the preparations that we have had to implement for fall semester. We understand that those aspects, in some ways, may be limiting to students and families, but please understand that we're taking all the precautions and all the care to make sure that the living experience, as well as the move-in experience, is planned and executed with the utmost concern for your students' health and safety, for your health and safety, and for the continued experience of students in the residence halls. We pride ourselves in having a great and well-organized move-in process. Please ask anyone for the past few years on how we have really taken that as our sincere and well-oiled welcome process. And so what we're going to be explaining to you and detailing to you is a combination of all these efforts together, our care as well as our concern for health and safety. And so you will note, as we're displaying right now, a timeline of events coming all the way from the announcement of the university regarding the AU Forward plans, all the way to our move-in process. So right now we're at July 6th, which is about 41 days. Can you imagine 41 days to the beginning of the move-in experience. And so in the next few slides, the next few minutes, we'll be continuing to talk to you about those details and what that is going to entail. And so I'm going to pass over to my colleague Skylar, who is going to begin explaining to you those details. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to start by just giving kind of a general overview of the move-in plan. And a lot of this information came out last week in an email that was sent to incoming first-year students with housing assignments on July 2nd. So if you haven't had a chance yourself as a student, or if you're a parent or family member joining us to review that email, I do encourage you to go back through and just really review it line by line, because a lot of this information is captured there. So we know everyone was really anxious to get our move-in dates. That was the #1 question leading into last week. When is move-in starting? So we've taken a little bit different approach this year and kind of spread things out. So we do have a longer move-in period time, and that starts Sunday, August 16th and goes through Thursday, August 20th. And that'll be an all-day event each day. So we'll pretty much be going 9 to 5. In the email that went out last week on July 2nd, there is a link to go ahead and select your own move-in time block. And that's important. The time block allows you to pick your preferred move-in day, and then an AM session or a PM session. And so that allows you to really take into consideration your travel plans and the variables that are unique to you and your family situation. And so we are really encouraging folks to go ahead and do that now. We were talking earlier, and folks are actively signing up for those, but there's plenty of spots available. So if you haven't done that, don't worry, but go ahead and take a look at that as soon as you're able to. We do really encourage everyone to review and finalize their travel plans in tandem with selecting their time blocks, because it really is challenging for us to be able to switch those up, since there's so many folks that we're planning to welcome to campus that day. So that's really important that everyone kind of reviews that and knows their plans when they are selecting those time blocks. From there, that really just gives us a good idea of when everybody's going to be able to make it with their travel plans. And then we're going to take those move-in time blocks and come up with more specific check-in times. And that's information that we'll send out at the end of July. And so if you selected, a morning and AM time block from 9 to 1, we're going to set that up in a really systematic way that allows for the best move-in experience for everybody to be able to go through and get checked in, get to their rooms in a really smooth manner. So we'll be whittling that down and assigning people really specific times to check in on campus. And that information all will be sent out at the end of this month. And then we also know move-in is an experience. It's a milestone, and it's something that many folks with our students want to be a part of. And so we did release some more information on what that's going to look like. We absolutely are having to balance a lot of this move-in experience this year with the health and safety of the whole entire AU community, both for our students and our families that we're welcoming for campus, but also for our staff who are kind of going to be helping run things. And so we are able to have some guests come to campus with residents, but we are going to limit it to 2 people. And so that's another really important piece to factor into your travel time, your travel experience, when you do select your move-in time block. So we're going to allow about 2 people, 2 guests per resident. There will be a limited time slot in that. And so we'll have some check-in processes for folks when they do get to campus, so that we know who's arrived with their guests and how long of a time frame they'll be able to be in there. We're going to limit it to 2 hours, so plenty of time to be able to get in, see the room, help folks get settled, but also make way so that we can filter everybody in and out of our buildings. And another important step that's going to come out later as we get closer to move-in is we are going to ask all those guests to be pre-registered. So we'll send out information ahead of move-in. That's not a decision you have to make now, but as we get closer to that August 16th date, we will ask folks to submit all their guests' information ahead of time, just so we can know who's coming, and that helps us really speed up that move-in day process, so we don't have to take everyone's information down, but we're able to track folks. We'll probably be issuing some kind of like wristband or identifier so that we know who showed up each day and who's already gone through our process. We're going to keep talking about move-in, but I'm actually going to hand it over to Ashley to talk about kind of the day of and what you can expect.
Yeah, thanks, Skylar. And so move-in day for us is probably one of the most exciting days that we get to see you all join us for the first time. And there will be other milestones, but there is something very unique about move-in. And so one of the ways that we will be unique in this year is we are certainly encouraging folks to pack lightly. We know that for some people, you know, you're in a double that is being used as a single, and so you might be thinking, let me bring everything I possibly can. We want to really encourage you to bring minimal items, and we're going to be working within the bounds of one cart. So on our next slide, I will show sort of what those dimensions look like, but we want to be sure that everything is packed up and sealed as tight as it can be. We want to sort of reduce any opportunity for items to be spilling out or spilling over, or for anything to be sort of additionally touched or contacted by any staff member accidentally. And so we want to be sure that all of those items are sealed up. We will have staff available to get those items out of your vehicle, load them into a cart, and get them to your space. We're really thinking about move-in this year as trying to be as contactless as we can, while still providing a really high quality move-in experience for you. And so please know that the precautions we're taking around physical distancing and ensuring that move-in is running as smoothly as it can isn't to keep you from building community. In fact, we're hoping to do quite the opposite throughout your experience, not only through the week that you're moving in, but also once you stay with us for campus. As a reminder, no pets are allowed when coming in and out of the residence hall, so please keep that in mind if you have a pet that is traveling with you. And then we have been taking our guide, as I think most people have been, to the best of their ability. We do encourage you to review any CDC guidelines, to really update yourself and have awareness around what might be expected either from your home state or country, and what that travel may look like for you coming to campus. We are using those guides in sort of forming everything that we have laid out for this coming academic year. So we will be sending out details. We know that folks like to know, where do I park? How far am I from the building? You know, how close am I to the front door? We will be sending all of that information out in a future coming email with move-in details. So here's what one of our moving carts looks like. The dimensions of the moving cart on the left-hand side of your screen that is fully packed with a fun little giraffe there, because I don't know about any of you, but I certainly went to college with at least one stuffed animal. There may have been a couple more. So that giraffe sort of really feels that space for me. So the moving cart dimensions are 48 inches by 24 inches by 28 inches. And then to give some context, I have shown the cart loaded and then everything unloaded, and what the dimensions of some of those boxes are as well, so that you can get a sense of, looking at that box, how much stuff was in there. Aside from the giraffe, we have the bedding, towels, whole bunch of some AU swag I think is hiding in there, a first aid kit because I am clumsy and I also get paper cuts often, so I've got that with me, some hand sanitizer because who doesn't at this point, I think, and also my oat milk because it's my favorite kind, so that came along with me as well. But as you can see, all of the items are packed either in their own packaging or they've been placed inside of a sealed box of some kind. And so that's up to you how it's sealed. That could be you've ordered a couple of things from Amazon and you've left it sealed and you leave it in that box, or you're using reusable totes that you have. So you can certainly get creative. We just want to ensure that everything is sealed and covered over, and so that it can be easily handled inside and outside of the cart at all times.
I also see lots of great questions going into the chat, so that's wonderful. Keep those questions going. We'll answer as many as we can today and follow up with more. But we know that as we approach kind of anything right now, but especially the idea of move-in, everyone really has their mind on health and safety. We know you all have lots of questions about this, and we have spent days and weeks planning this and playing out scenarios and making sure that we're working with all of our AU campus partners, but as well as those in the DC region, to make sure that we're offering this experience and putting a plan together with the health and safety of the entire AU community in mind. That's really been our leading priority and the #1 thing we've been focused on as we've built out this plan. And so as I shared earlier, one of the things that you'll notice, and if you've been familiar with previous AU move-ins, is we've really taken the time to spread move-in out. And that was done with a goal in mind of really reducing the density of people that come in all at once. So we, laid out all of our buildings, our numbers, and looked at our elevator lobbies, everything you can think of about coming in and out of doors, and really came up with a systematic approach that was backed by the strong information and data of how we can have folks move in safely across 5 days. And so that's one thing you'll notice when you do go to sign up, is we have the Sunday through Thursday options in there. Our staff will certainly be taking increased precautions. Like many things, if you've experienced, even as going to a grocery store right now, you'll see some like plexiglass barriers between the front desks and where customers interact, and we're going to follow a lot of those similar standards. So that's one thing you'll notice, is our staff will be making sure to protect themselves as well as protecting anyone that we're welcoming to the AU community. We'll certainly have hand sanitizer. You'll see staff in gloves, and of course we'll all be wearing masks and ask that everyone else do as well. Part of that I mentioned too, and the importance of, is pre-registering guests. And again, that'll happen in August, probably about a week to 2 before move-in, when we know folks have really had a chance to settle in on their plans and make those decisions about who's able to come with a student and not. So we'll send that out so we can pre-register. That way we'll have the ability to track and trace anybody that's coming through the AU community and campus on those days, as we know it's a high volume period. And of course, we want to encourage anyone who's not feeling well or displaying any signs of illness, particularly those related to COVID-19, that they be sure and take care of themselves and stay home. And so that's something we're going to ask everybody to just be really conscious about and reviewing and making sure you're familiar with that as well, both for the safety of you, your student, and of course the rest of the AU community. And then here's a little bit more. This is kind of a combo slide. All of this also applies to move-in, but we really wanted to also leave you with more information about what we can expect the experience to be like in the fall. And so this slide really focuses on continuing this conversation of health and safety and how it's going to show up in the fall experience and into the academic year. But like I said, this also all will be, of course, a part of the move-in experience. So we will ask that anyone that's on AU's campus, do you have a mask or a face covering with them? Those will be required inside the residence halls and throughout campus anytime you're inside buildings. So if, as a resident and parent, if you're in that bedroom unpacking and that door's closed, you're absolutely welcome to take off your mask. That is like a home experience for you. But we do ask anytime, whether it's move-in day or in the academic year, when students are freely moving around the building, whether that's to go use the laundry or they're walk down to the bathroom or to exit the building, that they do have that mask or face covering on. And that's something we'll be working really closely with everyone to make sure that they understand is a part of the AU community standards. We've also gotten lots of questions about cleaning and that routine. Absolutely, we'll be increasing our cleaning of common areas, particularly our bathrooms. We're working with our wonderful housekeeping staff and facilities management to make sure that we're following really good industry standards around that. Community bathrooms, high touch areas are going to be disinfected and cleaned with much more regularity than we've seen in the past. So we've really increased that. And of course, we're going to have lots of hand sanitizer in building entries, elevator lobbies. We also have gotten a lot of questions about what's it going to be like in the building when you're there. Are things like lounges and community spaces going to be open? And they are, and we're really excited about that. We know that it's a really important part of that experience, especially with so many changes that COVID has made it required all of us to have. But we will have our community spaces open as we can. A lot of those spaces are going to see a different kind of set of parameters around them, mainly in how many people can be in those spaces at once. So we'll have maximum occupancy signs in all of our common areas. So areas like TV lounges, the community kitchens, laundry rooms, things like that will all be there. But the general theme, in addition to wearing your mask, is just always being really present of your physical distancing. And so making sure to give each other space so that everybody in the community really feels like that they are in a safe environment and have a really good, mutual respect around a lot of these standards. And then of course, last is elevators. We'll have additional signage in all of our elevators. It's one of the tighter spots. If folks are able to and willing, all of our stairwells are always open. But when we are in the elevators, we'll limit those to 2 people at a time. So again, just some general things that absolutely do apply to move-in and we want to prepare folks for, but we also will carry into throughout the academic year as a part of the living experience in the halls. Oh, let me take your glass of water. So then we also kind of to counter or to balance out the pieces that Ashley shared about what to show up with on the day of move-in, we're also going to encourage folks to send as much ahead of time as they can. And there's 2 big reasons for this. It's a mutual benefit to both us as we plan the logistics of move-in, but also you to help you kind of lighten your load in move-in day and when you arrive to campus. And so we will there's a couple slides on this, and this information will also all be shared out further and posted on our website. So don't worry if you don't catch some of the specifics, particularly about how things are supposed to be addressed. But we're going to set up what we're going to call a ship ahead program. And so the idea behind this is that students and families can send items ahead of time so that they don't have to deal with it on move-in day and we don't have to worry about unloading the car. So for this to work, the items that are shipped to campus need to arrive between August 3rd and August 10th. So that gives you a pretty specific window. So we'll really need folks to think about their planning, as we do understand that there's, as everybody's kind of shipping things, the arrival dates can be a little all over the place. So we really need you to work with whoever you're shipping it with to make sure that it gets here between the 3rd and the 10th. And if it does arrive in that window, we'll have those items all in the residence room before you get here on your move-in day. So it'll be pre-placed in your room. We'll take care of all that. The shipping is an expense to families and students, but on our side, we'll take care of everything, the logistics, the storage for that weekend, making sure that it gets into the room before you arrive. So that's a huge benefit. You arrive, check in, and everything's in there in the room. If anything doesn't make it by the 10th, don't worry, we'll make sure it still gets to you, but there's going to be a hold period until after the 17th. And anything that does go to that period, it just goes into our kind of routine new mailroom process. So those items will be available just through our standard kind of mail and packaging delivery system at a centralized location where students will be able to pick those up. So those will be accessible too. And so this is an important slide too. How do you address it? How do you make sure mail and packages get to campus, both for that window of time, August 3rd to the 10th, but then also during the academic year? And this is a change. I know we're talking to first-year students and families, but if you've heard anything about previous mail, the address did change this year. And so that's important to note. This will be posted on our website, so don't feel like you have to memorize the mailing address just yet. But we'll send anything to the student's name, residence hall, room, and their number. And then we'll copy American University's mailroom with the address of 3201 New Mexico Avenue Northwest. And so again, that's for that ship ahead window of August 3rd through the 10th, but then also carries over into the academic year. And then last, just some general information about package restrictions. And this applies to both the ship ahead program and the fall academic year. We do have some limitations, and this is largely just to volume, right? We have a lot of students living with us in a year, and we have really great dedicated staff who make sure that they get all of their mail-in packages. And so to make sure that we can do that, we do have some basic restrictions. It allows for nearly everything that you're typically going to send in mail-in packages, but especially in a move-in time when we think about things getting bigger and heavier and bulkier, we just want to make sure that individual boxes meet these requirements. And again, this will all be posted on our website and available to you to check out. But there are general restrictions around the size of the box, the weight of the box, making sure nothing's over 15 pounds, and then some really oversized items like bikes, large flat screen TVs, large sets of furniture. So just remember that anything that does get sent does get processed and goes through a lot of hands, and we want to make sure all those folks are safe in lifting any of these items that get sent ahead. So again, before you pack up, just do a double check. to make sure that all the items do meet these kind of restrictions. And everything, again, if it gets here before August 10th, we'll make sure it's in the room ahead of time.
So that brings us to sort of a further specific topic around safety, and that is something that we've heard quite a bit from some families and students at this point in time, which is what happens if somebody gets sick? What happens if my student gets sick? What does isolation or self-quarantine look like on campus? Which are great things to consider. So some of what we really think about when we are looking at our self-isolation or self-quarantine is really how do we make sure that the student who isn't feeling well is receiving all of the care and all of the things they would typically need as seamlessly as possible. And so how are they making sure to access their classrooms, or their online classrooms? How are they making sure that they have their 3 meals a day? How are they sort of accessing some other things that they may need? And we had a little bit of a test run with this when we closed out in spring, that we made sure that we had spaces set in the event that any student became symptomatic of any kind. And so we've had a little bit of a test run with this, which is very helpful. And so a lot of what we focus on is students who are showing symptoms or are under the advisement under Student Health Center and are potentially being asked to be in self-quarantine or self-isolation. They're going to be in designated locations that do have self-contained bathrooms within their bedroom. So the student would essentially be behind a closed door, and then meals and other student supports would be brought to them in some capacity. So whether that's food coming to their space, or it's a video chat or a call with faculty or staff supports in some capacity, that's sort of the experience we want to be able to mirror, is that our students are still connected within the community while they're waiting for their test results. So those students will have regular check-ins with members of our team, but also with some frequency from our health services team. And then we'll also be making sure that those spaces are cleaned regularly, that they have access to having their trash removed, their laundry managed, and things along those lines. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that everybody knows is we understand that not feeling well is already tough, and it is incredibly more difficult to not be feeling well and to be potentially waiting for questions and responses from tests that you're having run. And so we want to be able to support all of our students as best as we can. And we're going to take the guide from our medical director and also from the health department regarding if a student has potentially identified, has been identified and tested positive for COVID, what then happens. And so the university has a process in place to go ahead and take the appropriate steps in terms of looking through any contact that student may have had or where they've had contact across campus. And we take that guidance from our health department regarding when a student has been cleared in terms of any positive to then negative test results that we're seeing. And so we are not the health experts, and we do not claim to be. And so we are taking those guides, and we are taking the practices that we've seen across the country and across the district right now in particular, to make sure that we are adapting our policies and procedures here on campus to continue to provide you access to what you have here while doing it as safely as possible. And then what does fall look like? So Skylar has mentioned that there will be 2 guests. We've had a lot of questions about guests over the past couple of weeks, and basically, do I get to have a guest while I'm here on campus? And the answer is yes, and we actually aren't going to be allowing any outside guests after the move-in period has concluded. And so what this means is if Skylar and I are living in the same hall and I want to go visit him on another floor, I'm going to be able to do that. And we're using the same guide for the physical distancing within bed spaces as we are in all of our communal spaces. And so that being said, we would be looking for residents to host no more than 1 guest in a space at a time, because that allows for the continued 6-foot recommendation around physical distancing. We've had a number of questions come up around furniture in spaces, or whether or not a bed could be lofted and things along those lines. And The quick answer to both of those is furniture will stay in the space, so you're welcome to deconstruct if needed. Tuck a bed underneath another bed, but all furniture is expected to remain in the spaces. And because of the additional space that our students will have, we are not going to be using the loft program for this coming academic year. Some of you may have requested room changes at this point. We have been working tirelessly to make sure that all of our students are in a space and have hopefully received a space that is feeling really good for them and will be a good location. We are never able to give every single student their #1 top choice, which we know can be hard, but we are working diligently to make sure that your experience, regardless of where you're living, is seamless and equitable. And so one of the other things that folks ask us a lot about is around mini refrigerators and microwaves and whether or not you can bring them. You can have them, but they do need to be rented through our approved vendor. And so all of that information is on our website, and you're welcome to take a look at that and pre-order those at your leisure. So then one thing that some of you may have seen is your AU OneCard emails are coming through. Mine happens to be right here with me at all times. We want to make sure that you have set up as best as you can the ability to have your OneCard printed for you in advance of arriving to campus. And so you have the opportunity to actually upload your photo to be placed onto your AU ID, your OneCard. And so please make sure that you are checking out information from our OneCard office. This is basically the golden ticket on campus. This is going to get you access into your residence hall, into your bed space. It allows you to use your meal plan. Students will use this for printing and to access different types of programs on campus. And we want to make sure that you have everything you need to identify yourself on campus. And this is basically the #1 thing that you will need once you've arrived to us. And so please make sure that you are uploading those photos by July 31st. And you can go ahead and sign up at the bit.ly link of Get My OneCard. And we'll look forward to seeing some of these pictures come through early. I know that our OneCard team is very excited about them.
All right, so we have given you lots of information. Chris and I have been diligently going through the questions that you all have asked. We've tried to answer as many as we can, but we certainly are going to address some of those as well for the remaining 20 minutes of our call. What we want to get started with first are the questions that came in advance of our session. So Chris, why don't you get us started?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Skylar and Ashley, for all those details. So perhaps, Ashley, you could talk a little bit about this one. What will it look like for guests after move-in? What does that look like?
Sure, absolutely. So guests after move-in, we're really in the effort to continue to reduce density in the residence halls. The expectation is that residents can have a guest, but that guest must live within their own residence hall. And so we're not allowing any outside guests to come into campus and to stay within the residence halls. Students are welcome to have a guest overnight if they choose, but we're going to ask that, again, we keep that physical distancing requirement to the best of our ability. And so we would ask for no more than 1 guest per student at any given time. What I hope that you don't hear in that is, if I want to come visit my student, I want to come see you and see you on campus, we always welcome any family and friends to come visit. We're just going to ask that you have those visits happen either off campus or outside in a physically distant way, rather than trying to all be in the residence hall at one point in time.
Thank you. And in the questions that we received before the webinar, as well as here in the chat, we're getting questions about what will it look like for students that arrive on campus? Will there be events, activities? What is that week going to look like? Can you provide some insight on that?
Sure, absolutely. So Skylar and I have had the privilege of being able to work with a small group of folks who are working on exactly what the move-in and welcome process looks like. And so we promise once you get here, you're not staying in your room like by yourself and being closed away. We promise. We're going to have lots of different activities that are being planned at the university level through a number of partnership offices. And so there will be activities to partake in that are both either physically distant, and so you'll be able to socialize in as spread out of a way as we can through virtual programs that will be happening. And we will certainly be looking to utilize the space that we do have and the ability that we do have to spread out in some capacities outside to make sure that you're getting to know the folks who are living down the hall from you just as easily as you might be getting to know someone who lives in another residence hall. And so we're very excited and have been working really hard to, it's been amazing to see and to be in awe of colleagues who are adapting programs that typically would be held in a very particular way to make sure that they are happening for you as a resident when you come in. And so our goal is not only that week, but then really what's your experience like for the duration of the time that you're with us on campus. And so we have live-in student staff and professional staff who will also be working hard to make sure that you are having as much physically distant social interaction as we can provide every week. And we look forward to really figuring out from some of you too what you might want to see in terms of physically distant or virtual programs that we can help provide for you. Thanks, Chris.
One additional part to that question that I want to tackle a little bit, the question of what emotional support will we provide for students and families. And I think that's an important question. If you've participated in orientation, you have probably heard a number of times the reference to this being a village. This is our community. Every person that is part of the AU community has a commitment to supporting our students. We understand the challenges that you all are being confronted with. These are, and I know you've heard, unprecedented times for all of us. But we also know that many of the students that are coming in having maybe even feeling experience of loss, having graduated from college and maybe didn't get to participate in a prom, or maybe the graduation was significantly altered. And while I know a lot of high schools did all they could to show students, to celebrate students and their accomplishments, we recognize that these are the students that are coming to campus and their first year of college is being significantly modified. Ashley referenced the resident assistant. Those are the primary people that are going to be living on the floor and in community with students. But we also have a host of, as I call the village, of folks that are here to support and already asking what ways in which they can support students. How can they be a resource? How can they be an extension? Throughout campus life, we have many offices, the Center for Student Involvement, the Center for Diversity Inclusion, student engagement. We are all working together as a portfolio to work across departments to create a seamless experience for students. And we want families to know that when you leave your student, that they're going to be, you're going to leave them in the care of a community that does care, that recognizes the challenges, and will do everything that we can to support that. And we also want you to hear as families that you can bring your concerns, that you can reach out to us beyond the move-in experience. Chris and I always tell families to reach out to us. We want to know how things are going, how we can improve, and how we can make sure that students are feeling supported. So I'm glad that you asked that question because it is an important one, but I hope that what you hear from us is that we are a community of care and we are excited about this transition, and we'll do everything that we can to make sure that students have the best possible first year experience that they can have. Skylar, I'm going to ask you a question, and this is, I think, an important one. They didn't get a confirmation email for move-in registration. What should they do?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So when you went to the sign up page, you can look, you would have been displayed all the available options to you at that time. And when you select it, once you complete and fill out all of the fields, it should take you to a confirmation page. So it should say, like, thank you so much for signing up. You've completed the process. So if you hit that page, that's great. At the very start, when they first went live, there was a delay on some of the emails. So if you were one of the first people to get that email and go in right away and sign up, you may have not actually got a confirmation email back to you, but that's okay. We did go in and adjust those settings. So folks from there on after should have all received confirmations following. We'll also be following up to send out confirmations to make sure everybody has that information as a part of the move-in process. But a lot of folks have also shared that if they went back in and looked at it to try to take another look, it would have showed it only allows one sign up per email. And so if you do go back in there to take a look at it, click on the same link. And if it doesn't allow you to sign up for a new one, that means you're all set to go. We got your first one because we did put that limitation to make sure you could only sign up for one. So a couple of different ways to check it out. Confirmation page, if you got an email, or if it does show that you aren't able to register for a second time slot with your email, all good to go. But then of course, we'll be sending out confirmations with more move-in information.
And Skylar, if I could add in another question. There's a few questions about the logistics of the unloading of vehicles and bringing items into the residence halls. Perhaps you could just go into a little bit more detail about that. Perhaps that will clarify questions.
For sure. And it sounds like a thunderstorm is rolling through DC. So if you hear some background noise on any of our microphones, that's what that is, because I just got a loud thunderstorm roar out my window. So move-in day. We are going to get really specific details out to everyone. And we know that this whole time, the last few weeks, and everything we're planning, folks are really anxious for information, and we totally understand that. We're going to do our best to get things really detailed and get the right information to all of you in a really thoughtful and strategic process. So know that as this information comes out in phases, we're doing that to make sure that we get you the right information and that as little as possible changes each time information comes out. So we will send out information on where to park. We'll have maps of the university, where check-in stations are, the order in which you should do things. That will all get to you in plenty of time before move-in so you can feel settled and really take some time to review that. But kind of a quick general overview is we will have designated areas for folks to arrive to. We'll point out our nearest parking garages. Our residence halls are kind of in clusters around campus. And with this new move-in model for this year, we'll likely have folks check in at various places across campus. And we'll outline all of those places to you. But you will arrive to campus, park in the nearest parking garage. We'll have a check-in location of some kind where folks can get their AUID, their OneCard that Ashley mentioned. And then when we're talking about unloading belongings, our hope is to make this as easy and smooth for everyone as possible. So we will have one cart for every car. So if a car pulls up, we'll have staff there to help get everything out of the car. That's why it's so important that things are sealed and pre-packed. The loose items that can kind of fall out and fall out of the car, fall out of the cart, or what take a little bit more time. So as much as stuff can be in Rubbermaid tubs or luggage or taped boxes, that's super helpful. So we can get that all into those carts. Those carts will go into a staging area that we monitor, and we know who's everything's labeled. So we are very strict on knowing what items came from what car and who it belongs to. We do monitor all that. Well, you're able to go park. And then that allows us to have a much smoother way of help getting your items in. So we'll have staff take the carts up into rooms and help unload that. And then you'll get students will get a text message from us that says items have been delivered, you're good to go, you can come back to your room. And that allows us to help really control that flow piece and not have so many moving parts. But we do our best to make sure everyone's well taken care of that day and that things are unloaded in the room. So that your move-in day can be really focused on your experience.
Ashley, we got a couple of questions, a variety of questions about, can I bring a toaster? Can I bring a plug-in? How would a student know about what they should or shouldn't be bringing to the residence halls? What would be considered approved and what would not be considered approved? There was also a question about a heater. So how would a student know what would be considered approved appliances or approved things and things that maybe weren't approved?
Sure, that is a great question. So all of the sort of what to do, what to bring, what not to bring information is listed on our website. So we certainly would love for you to visit and take a look at what we're recommending you do bring or you don't bring to campus. Fairly basic rules to follow are if there is an exposed heating element of any kind, we're not going to allow those sort of into the residence hall space. And so part of that is for your safety and for the building safety, and anything with an open flame. So please leave your candles and your incense and any of those types of items safely at home. We don't want those brought into the residence halls either. In that same vein, any sort of smoking needs to happen outside. So we are a smoke-free campus. So our residence halls are smoke-free. So while the bed space is yours, please go ahead and bring those items outside. And when it comes to specific appliances or different types of appliances, we really recommend that you follow our what to bring, what not to bring guide, because again, those exposed heating elements can be very specific, and we want to be sure that you are taking the time to check and make sure that before you bring something, it can be brought to campus. If you do have questions about a particular type of item that you're looking to bring and you're unsure based on what our recommendations are, whether or not you should bring it, please email us and let us know so that we can help get you that answer before you either pack and ship it or you send it to us in advance. We want to make sure that you don't have to turn anyone away or send anything back as a way to sort of disrupt your move-in process.
Can you talk a little bit about the micro fridge program? Because I know some have asked about bringing their own or renting. Thank you.
So we do offer, we work with a third-party vendor called My Fridge Rental, and it is, there's a link to it on our website. So if you our services, personalize your room section of our webpage, you can go on there and click through options. They have a variety of everything from just a little cube mini fridge if you want something small to a fridge, freezer, microwave combination. So those are available on our website. This year we have made the change that the only way to have an approved mini fridge or microwave or that combination is through our rental program. And because of that, we are offering a discount on all of those rentals. So if you go to their website and they have an American University portal where it lists out all of our units, those prices are special to AU students this year. And that's something we worked on as we made this change. And this was an important change for us because it really helps us, again, with that volume on move-in day. And it also allows us to know that all of these appliances that are coming into the residence halls are cleaned by commercial standards, both at the front end and at the back end. It also helps us minimize anything that gets left behind and abandoned because we have such a great relationship with this company. So those are all on there. Again, there's lots of options. So check that out. There's a link off of our website. And again, it's another advantage because it'll be pre-delivered in your room when you arrive. So they do have a deadline for that. So be sure if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and check it out. And you can place that rental order directly through them.
One thing I want to touch on maybe a little bit more detail is our guest policy, because we're still getting lots of questions just to clarify the guest policy. So we understand the challenge with restrictions on guests and visitors. The decision was made to ensure limited exposure, potential exposure, and density. We understand that it does restrict students from being able to go to and from residence halls freely. For now, the policy will be that students that live within buildings can visit each other. But students that live in different residence halls will not be permitted to come into the residential space. We certainly are going to continue to pay attention to what's happening throughout the country and world and the impact specifically in DC. And if there is an opportunity to evaluate perhaps later in the semester or for the spring semester, we certainly will do so. Chris and I both sit on a health and safety task force, and we're continuously doing check-ins and talking about health and safety more broadly, but specifically to the lived experience that students are going to have. But for now, we are going to have to limit the restriction on visitors in the residence halls. If there are questions beyond that about our guest policy, I certainly will welcome, you can reach out to me directly. But for now, this is what the policy is going to be, and we expect all community members as well as families and parents to adhere to that. There was a question that I answered about a bike. And AU is a bike-friendly, I was gonna say state, we haven't gotten statehood, but we are a bike-friendly city. You can bring your bike. We absolutely encourage that from overall health and wellness. Bikes can't be shipped. So if you bring your bike, you certainly can bring it, and it doesn't have to be part of the move-in process. We have bike racks outside every residence hall that you certainly can make sure that you can have that. So I don't want anyone to interpret some of the restrictions on the cart to mean that you can't have things like bikes. We know that bikes are important and part of people's livelihood.
I'll add on to that too, that DC has a really great, lots of bike share programs too. So if you're unsure about a bike, it's not a bad idea to wait till you get here. We have a variety of bike share and scooter share programs that are all around AU's campus and distributed throughout the District of Columbia as well.
I'm seeing a few different questions related to non-housing residence life services. A few other, support systems on campus, gyms, parking, resources that are available by the university. I would highly encourage students and families to visit specific websites for those different offices so that you can find out how those services will be operated in the fall semester. We know that all of our colleagues are making all the different adaptations and modifications based on the appropriate health and safety guidelines to ensure that services are provided for students. So we encourage everyone to check those specific websites for those specific services. So thank you.
Ashley, can you talk a little bit about our residential desks? There was a question that was asked, do we have security guards in residence halls? So can you talk a little bit about the desk operation and how we work to ensure the safety of our students?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question. Our residence halls are staffed with a front desk area that is staffed 24/7 by a variety of student staff. And so we always have someone available there at the front desk. A lot of our students, if you are walking into the building and you realize that you maybe have locked yourself out, or perhaps you have a quick question that you need to ask, our front desk really does serve as a catch-all for most of our residents who are coming in, going through the buildings. So students would, again, this OneCard that you'll be using quite often, students will use this OneCard to enter into the building, and the desk staff sort of make sure that the person who's entering has access to that card, and that they don't have anyone just following in behind them and not sort of tapping their card to sort of validate who they are and that they should be physically in the space at that time. If a student has, you're not feeling well and you happen to be walking in and you say, I think that I may need medical attention, or I'm not sure how to contact the RA on call and I think I need to talk through something, our front desk can always point our students into that next level of support and of care. Our front desk has direct access to all of our emergency services should they needed it in any kind, and also have direct access to our professional staff who also serve in a 24-hour on-call rotation. And so there's always somebody here, whether it's physically at the front desk and you're walking by and you might say hi or try to get assistance with something, or one of our RAs who happens to be on call overnight and essentially outside of business hours, and then our professional staff who are on call and are able to triage anything from a student has a has sprained their ankle and they may want to have it looked at or maybe not, to I'm really feeling homesick and I'm away from home for the first time. That was me for my whole first week of college, right? Like I wasn't that far away, but I missed folks a lot. And I relied on those people very early on to be able to talk through some of that. And so our staff are here to help, and there's always somebody available sort of within our spaces, but our front desks and our front lobby areas are monitored 24/7.
Skylar, can you talk a little bit about community spaces? More specifically, what do the common spaces look like? There's some questions about the kitchen. What all comes in the kitchen? Can you talk a little about the community shared space? And can you also include, there were a number of questions about elevators in residence halls. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep, I'll start with the elevators because it's a quick, easier one. All of our residence halls have elevators, with the exception of Roper Hall, which is a smaller two-story building. So Roper Hall is our only building without elevators. All the other ones have more than one. More than one elevator in the building. So plenty of opportunity to be able to use those for move-in day as well as just throughout the year. And they'll all be labeled with stickers about, limiting to 2 folks each trip and everything like that. For common areas, so we do have a variety of common areas, and our goal is to keep those open and accessible for students to use throughout the year. And as long as we can maintain it in a healthy and safe environment for everyone. So we do have kind of a combination of things. We have designated study rooms that are spots if people need a place that's alternate to their bedroom to be able to study. So we do have those. We have what we call common area or community lounges. And oftentimes that's a combination of like a TV lounge, social space, combined with a community kitchen of some kind. They'll either be connected in a same space or right next door to each other. But our goal again is to keep those spaces open for folks. I mentioned earlier that they will have some kind of restrictions and parameters around use that we'll be asking folks to make sure that they follow. Mainly it's around maximum occupancy. So we've worked with our planning team to look at the square footage of all of those spaces, the amount of furniture that we have in those, and then we've come up with a number. So looking around just general use and how many people can fit in that space. We'll be removing some of the excess furniture ahead of move-in just to kind of take back any temptation if you want to be that extra person in there. So we'll make sure to go through and do a good audit to make sure everybody's set up for success in using those spaces. We'll also have a lot of our kind of community signage around this, our public health signage, to remind folks of what some of the basic symptoms are to keep that fresh in them. A reminder about things like the masks and washing your hands. Our community kitchens will have some additional signage around how to keep that space safe and safe to use for other members of the community. Our community spaces though, or particularly our community kitchens, they're not stocked or anything though, so they do not have pots and pans or plates or anything like that. We absolutely are, students are welcome to bring all that, but one adjustment we're going to make or be more adamant about this year is that folks don't leave any of those items in the lounges for other people to use. So if you're someone who wants to make sure to bake something all the time, so you have that pan or that casserole dish or a pot or something like that for the stove, we're just going to really make sure that folks take care of that themselves and return it to their room and store it in their room with their items and not leave it out for any kind of communal use. And that's going to be a really important means to make sure everybody kind of follows that safety practices. The other one is laundry rooms. So we do have laundry rooms on every floor of all of our residence halls that'll continue to be available for use. We have a system called Laundry View, so folks can log onto the website and check out the laundry rooms to see if they're in use or not before they go down there. And so if all the machines are in use, there's no need to take that extra trip. You can just wait until one's available. multiple people can use those laundry machines at a time, but we're just going to ask that only one person be in that room physically at a time because they are smaller spaces. So if a couple of folks are doing laundry, we'll just make sure that everyone knows, you need to switch out your laundry and then wait before the next person goes in to make sure that's good. And again, all of these community spaces are in our high touch areas, so we will be working with our housekeeping staff to make sure that they are cleaned at a more frequent basis this year.
So there's a few, we're at time and I want to be mindful of that, but there's a question more specifically about shipping items. A couple of questions that I want to try to address. And if I don't get to all the questions, please email housing@american.edu and we'll make sure that those questions get answered. If you send things, we ask that you send things with the hope of them arriving between the 3rd and the 10th. Obviously, if something arrives on the 2nd, the item will be held and then it will be integrated into our in-room delivery process. Anything that comes after the 10th won't be sent back. It'll be held, but it won't be available until the 17th. And that's just to help us to manage the volume that's coming in. There's a question that's asked specifically about a pallet. Will we be able to ship our things on a pallet of boxes, or will each box need to be shipped individually? Skylar, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, you would want to ship things individually to fit within the package dimensions and restrictions we shared earlier. So if everything arrived on a pallet, it would exceed that weight and that limitation.
All right. So Chris, I don't know if there was any other. There was lots of questions. We had almost 400 people on this webinar, and we do appreciate you all being here with us. We tried to get to as many questions as possible, but we realized there are still some questions lingering. Chris, was there anything that you wanted to see if we can try to answer right now while we're on the phone?
No, it was just more of a note that there's several questions that are very nuanced, and the answers to these questions are on our website. For example, questions related to building specific issues, sizes of beds, sizes of rooms, tours of the rooms. All of these are in the specific building pages on our website. So if you visit our website, american.edu/housing, you're going to find all those details there, as well as the checking, the move-in packing list. You're going to find items there. So please investigate those web pages because many others have asked those questions, and so we keep building and editing those websites to be able to best help you. So visit us in that page. So thank you.
And there's one other question that I meant to also answer, and I hope this does not disrupt Skylar's process. If you have a small child and your child needs to come during move-in, your child will not be counted in the two guests. We ask that you do everything possible to try to help support us in how we've provided these guidelines, but we recognize that there are some nuances and some modifications that are needed. If you have more additional questions about that, please reach out to us and let us know, but we do not want a small child to be a penalization from your being able to bring the two parents into the residence halls as well. So that's our time. We really do appreciate you all being with us today. We understand that you have lots of things to plan out. We hope that this webinar was hopeful. We hope that we provided answers to questions that you have. I've said it before, I'll say it again, reach out to us. If you have questions, please let us know. What we don't want you to have to worry about is all of the extra stuff that comes with move-in. We're here to help you and to support you in this transition. We want to make sure that from the RAs all the way up to the president of the university, we want to make sure that you know that you have a village of people here to support you. So we will end it there. We hope for each of you, wherever you are, that you are safe, continue to be safe. And for all of our incoming students, we look forward to meeting you and your families in, as Chris said, 40 days or so. 41 to be exact. Take care. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.